everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we are going to be giving you guys our NFL Seekers consensus top 10 running back fantasy football rankings. It's combined ranking based on all three of our host rankings, and I'm really excited for this one. You excited to talk some top running backs?
Absolutely. Yeah, as you know, I'm a sucker for a good running back. I'll trade my entire team for some of these top running backs because I think it's the most valuable position in fantasy football. That's my personal opinion, but running back is so important, and the top 10, it's so crucial to have one of them on your roster. So yeah, I'm very excited. I think we got a good group in the top 10, a lot of receiving upside with these guys, which kind of puts them in the top 10, but I'm excited. We're missing Shane today. Kid's got a gambling addiction. He's stuck in the city gambling. So we'll see him next week.
Yeah, no, this episode's definitely right up your alley though, because we're going to be talking about like the first and second round running backs. So it's going to be an interesting conversation to see how we are kind of ranking these guys into their separate tiers, because a lot of them are really close. So I feel like we're going to have a lot of things to differentiate these running backs. Do you want to just get into our rankings now?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll get into our RB10, and I'm kind of surprised he wasn't in our last episode after them signing Ezekiel Elliott, but it's Patriots running back Rhamondre Stevenson. He comes in as our RB10. He's going as the RB10 right now in consensus drafts as the fourth pick in the third round. I have him at 11. Josh has him at 10, and Shane has him at 9. And I had Rhamondre last year, and he's just so fun to have. He's so dangerous in the receiving game. He's a real weapon as a receiver. He really surprised me, honestly, as a receiver. He's a top receiving back, and he's a bruiser in between the tackles. So he's a real well-rounded running back, and I love having him. The Zeke signing sucks. Like it makes me want to move him down, but he was really so good last year, and Zeke won't really have an effect in the passing game. So it's really hard to navigate how much Zeke hurts Rhamondre, but like Rhamondre is so fun, and he was awesome last year.
Yeah, it definitely makes me feel weird. I mean, Zeke was able to, him and Tony Pollard were both able to be, top 15 running backs last year in a running back by committee system. And I think the tread on Zeke is pretty low. So I think he's kind of getting to the end of his career. But it does stink because he's gonna steal a lot of those 1 yard touchdowns. I mean, anytime you're within the five, you know, Zeke is going to be the guy pounding the rock. But yeah, Rhamondre with his receiving upside should definitely help him. And it's just going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the usage between these two. I am a little scared off of Rhamondre right now, especially at his current ADP. I mean, who's going? Do you have it pulled up? Who's going around Rhamondre Stevenson? Who are the other running backs?
Yeah, so the other running backs going next to Rhamondre are Najee, 2 picks after him, which I think is pretty unacceptable. And then Travis Etienne's going 3 picks after him. So I think he's definitely kind of in a tier of his own, because above him is Tony Pollard, but he's going 6 picks ahead of him in the second round. So I think he is kind of appropriate.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, hearing about who's by him. I feel like I would probably rank Najee above him for sure. Now, with the Zeke news. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hurts. So if Tony Pollard is going 6 picks above, you almost at that point you almost just want to go, like, if the depth at receiver is better, you'd almost just choose to go that route just because of the uncertainty. But I mean, really, we saw him last year and he was so talented, and he was still able to produce with Damian Harris on the roster, who's not a bad running back by any means. So it'll be interesting. I feel like I guess where we're at on him, running back 10 is kind of appropriate. But he is definitely a question mark, and that is scary.
Yeah, he's also going right next to T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, and DK Metcalf. So there's definitely options where he's going. It kind of just depends on how you feel about Zeke and how much he'll affect him. It's hard because Rhamondre is a really good running back, but Zeke is going to steal touchdowns. Like, at the end of the day, he definitely will have a decent amount of goal line touchdowns, which sucks.
Yeah, it's just too bad because Rhamondre really came into his own last year, and he was such an
Mm.
exciting player. And I mean, you got the one season to benefit from that, and it was fun watching Rhamondre. But yeah, it is just kind of a little stinker that they threw at us, a couple weeks before the season starts. But I think in the end, Rhamondre will be pretty safe. And I think Zeke's going to vulture some touchdowns, but he should still be very reliable in the pass game and be their main 3 down running back.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he finishes the RB7 last year. So that's awesome. It's more than you could have hoped for sure. He was one of the steals of the drafts and one of the bigger advocates for the no running back strategy for sure. Hopefully we can find this year's Rhamondre. I don't know who it's going to be yet.
Oh, it'll be exciting. But yeah, shout out to Rhamondre for a heck of a season last year. Darn the Patriots for doing this to us just a couple weeks before the season. But again, as I'll preach in every single episode of the NFL Seekers podcast, this is why you wait to do your fantasy drafts. You never do them midsummer. It doesn't make any sense. You'll get news like this all throughout up until September. So always wait.
Yep, Dalvin Cook and Zeke are here to ruin your drafts, and then you've also got Lenny and Kareem Hunt that haven't even done anything yet. So there's a lot to happen still.
It's going to be interesting to see where those two end up.
Oh, I'm not excited for it. Do you want to get into RB9?
Yes, sir. Let's move right into it.
All right, I'm really excited to talk about RB9. I feel like we're higher on him than anyone you'll really see. We have Joe Mixon, the Bengals running back, as our RB9. He's being drafted as the RB15 in the 4th round, so we are a lot higher on him. Me and Josh both have him as our RB9, and Shane has him at 12. And I don't really understand why Mixon is going as the RB15. It makes absolutely zero sense. He was awesome last year with P Ryan behind him, and he was a little injured, and it was kind of a bad situation for Mixon, and he was still a top 10 running back. So I don't really see why he would go as the RB15 with P Ryan leaving. He's on a top 2 offense in the whole NFL, and he's going to be scoring a lot of touchdowns. It's not like he regressed physically, So I still expect him to have a really good season. They upgraded their offensive line. So I think Joe Mixon's just kind of slipping through the cracks because people are bored of him or something. I don't really understand what it is, but he's being drastically underdrafted, and he's gonna outpay where he's being drafted 100%.
Oh man, yeah, this might be one of the best picks, especially at his current ADP right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. And like you said, there's no reason. I mean, Joe Mixon is only going to improve from last year. I mean, he gets rid of Samaje Perine, who is a total vulture of receptions. I mean, Samaje took a lot of targets from Joe Mixon, and I mean, Joe Mixon took a pay cut to stay with the Bengals. I mean, they're going to feed him. They're going to feed the heck out of him. And he's really the only running back. I mean, he's one of the only running backs he's the guy. There's no guys behind him. No one's gonna scare you for touches. There's no Samaje Perine taking receptions. I mean, Joe Mixon is the guy, and the Bengals treat him like that. And so it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I get Joe Mixon kind of has up and down weeks. But I think this year is going to be one of his just safest floors because he is given that role of just a full-time running back. And I think the receptions are, I mean, he was still good in receptions last year. Let's see, he was targeted 75 times. You can maybe put that up another 20, 25 targets to that. Because I mean, Joe Burrow is going to dump off to Joe Mixon a lot. So absolutely love Joe Mixon, absolute steal at his current ADP. Why he's going in the 4th round is a total head scratcher to me, but I mean, tremendous value. So make sure to get him on your fantasy teams because I mean, tremendous value in the 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, he had 800 rushing yards last year, 7 rushing touchdowns, and 60 receptions. So nothing crazy at all. I feel like that's just a baseline floor for Joe Mixon. Like that's literally RB10 is what he finished. I feel like that's just his absolute floor. And now they have Chase Brown and Chris Evans as his backups and Trevion Henderson. So I don't really see a world where Joe Mixon isn't dominant outside of injury. And that's the same case with every running back we're going to talk about today. So I don't really understand the discourse on Joe Mixon at all. I feel like he's just complete still at this point. And the whole off the field thing was kind of a reason his ADP was lower, but that was never a real problem, and he was never going to miss time. So I feel like he's just an obvious upgrade, positive regression candidate. So I don't get it.
Yeah, all his stat production should definitely move up. And again, here's another reason which pains me to say, but this is another reason to go the 0 running back strat through the first couple rounds. If you're able to get a guy like Joe Mixon, who is a true RB1 in the 4th round, it's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, every single time I can get him in the 4th round of a draft I have to take it. It's the easiest 4th round pick you'll have. It's obvious.
Oh yeah, no brainer. Get Joe Mixon. I mean, 4th round, just hit submit on the pick because I mean he's only going to pay his value.
this is the lowest he's ever been drafted, and I can't name one negative about Mixon. I can't name a negative that's going to affect his fantasy football play. That he's going to be awesome. Like I really don't understand.
Yeah. Top two offense. The offensive line keeps getting better. They got rid of the receiving running back behind him. He's healthy. I mean, I'm scratching my head too, just trying to comprehend why he's not, second, third round. But I mean, I'm not going to be mad if I'm the beneficiary of Joe Mixon. I will not be mad about that.
Yeah, just keep it in mind. We have him as our RB9 and he's going as the RB15. So if he starts falling in your drafts, you just have to take him around the fourth round because it's just league winning value.
This might be the NFL seekers, biggest steal of the draft, honestly.
Yeah, definitely probably the pick that we would promote the most is Joe Mixon in the fourth, just because there's zero risk. And I'm not going to promote a pick with that much risk. So this is a perfect pick. We've talked about it a lot, but yeah, Joe Mixon on a top 2 offense in the NFL. It's obvious. He's such a good running back. I don't get 15. I keep saying it doesn't make sense. I can't even make sense of it. But we'll move on. We'll move on to our RB8. It is Titans running back Derrick Henry, the absolute legend. He's currently going as the RB6. Actually, is the 4th pick in the second round. All 3 of us have him as our RB8, which is interesting. It feels low. It feels disrespectfully low for Henry. I'll say that 100%. It's low for Henry. He's an absolute monster. I feel like the Titans are an underrated team, and they're still going to be very productive in offense. And if he's healthy, he's going to be awesome in fantasy, like he always is. It feels like he's always a top 5 running back until he gets hurt. That's kind of the one thing about him is injuries the last few years. But even then, he's just an absolute monster. So you can't really predict injury with this beast human.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel low for a guy coming off of a 1,500 rushing yards season with 13 rushing touchdowns. And not to mention, he had 400 receiving yards too. So, I mean, he's almost 1,900 all-purpose yards, or he is over 1,900 all-purpose yards and 13 touchdowns. So it is weirdly low, especially for a generational running back like Derrick Henry. I mean, this guy is like a once-in-a-lifetime generational type guy. This is like your Adrian Peterson, your LaDainian Tomlinson, you name your legendary running back. Derrick Henry is in that category. And, we always talk about his game just doesn't age. I mean, he's just a true Hulk. I mean, this guy is like the Incredible Hulk. I mean, the only thing that you can knock on Derrick Henry is just because they give him too many touches. I mean, this guy in some games was getting 40 touches, which is unheard of for a running back. I mean, that's a lot of mileage, but it really doesn't seem to affect Derrick Henry because he just goes out there and he busts out an 80-yard run. I mean, you give him 10 touches, 15 touches, 20 touches, and he just wears out that defense. And so I expect even if the Titans, have to switch to Will Levis or somebody, throughout the season, if, Ryan Tannehill goes down or they decide to bench him, I don't think it's going to hurt Derrick Henry's stock. I think his stock almost goes up because they just rely on him more. But I hope they don't run him into the ground. I mean, 350 touches last year is a lot, but I don't think he's going to regress. So just bearing injury. I mean, this dude is the Hulk, and he's going to put up numbers. And it does feel disrespectfully low, RB8 for a Hall of Fame running back.
Yeah, you said Hall of Fame running back, and that's definitely true. I feel like he's the last Hall of Fame running back we're going to see, just because of the arc that running backs are kind of heading towards. But yeah, like he finishes the RB4 last year. He missed a game, and he still finishes the RB4, and he's going as the RB6. So I feel like, yeah, everyone's just kind of sleeping on him, and there's some question marks with his age, but that's really it. I feel like the Titans offense will still be productive. And like you said, he manages to have an 80-yard touchdown every single play, whether it's a reception or just a screen or just a run up the middle. He's just a bowling ball, and he's impossible to stop. So I don't really see him regressing too much. He might have a little bit less production, but he's still going to be a lock, like top 6 running back. So I feel like around running back 8, that's just a complete steal. But the more I talk about it, we're lower on it. We're just low on Henry, I think.
Dan, I got a really important question for you.
What is it?
Over under 35 5-year-olds trying to tackle Derrick Henry.
Definitely gonna need over. You're gonna need like 60.
that conversation that was brought up was so funny.
I mean, look at the guy.
We have to somehow they have to do it now. I mean, it's got to be done. You got to bring out like a bunch of 5-year-olds like halftime and just like, put them in little football pads and see how many it takes, man. You got to have like 100, maybe like 120 on deck. Just
Make a big.
they do like the game with like the mascots, it would be hilarious. I want to see it happen. Make it happen. 5-year-olds trying to tackle Derrick Henry, please.
Yeah, he's the one player in the NFL that just nothing can stop the guy. You could put a bunch of cars behind Derrick Henry, and he's still going to be moving him. He's an absolute monster.
Love it.
I feel like we've just talked so positively about him. We can't even really say why we have him as our RB8 and why we're lower on him. It's really just age, and that's about it.
Yeah, and there is some good talent in front of him. So
there's some exciting young guys that we are a little bit higher on too. Do you want to get into our RB7? Someone really close to Henry.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. It's going to be the Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, who reached an agreement with the team yesterday to stay with the team. So now there's no more real question marks surrounding Jacobs other than just the Raiders in general and their success, I guess. But we have Josh Jacobs as our RB7. He's going as the consensus RB8, is the 8th pick in the second round. Me and Josh both have him at 7, and Shane has him at 6. And now that there's no question marks with Josh Jacobs playing, I'm all in on him. I'm definitely drafting him. He was, I would say, by far the best running back in the NFL last year. Obviously, production-wise, he was too, but he was just awesome. If you played against Josh Jacobs, it was insanely frustrating because you just can't stop the guy. The more he touches the ball, kind of like Derrick Henry, just the more he wears out the defense and the better he gets as the game goes on. So Josh Jacobs is definitely an A-list running back, and I feel like RB7 is kind of a perfect spot for him. It's one spot higher than where he's being drafted, and he's definitely being drafted at a spot where I would advocate to take Josh Jacobs after what he did last year.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs feels like a very safe pick to me. And I almost feel like having Jimmy Garoppolo in the offense helps Josh Jacobs. I feel like he's maybe a little bit more running back friendly. And I feel like Josh Jacobs didn't have any receiving touchdowns last year, which I think he definitely will this year with Jimmy Garoppolo. Because he's not a bad receiving running back. He still put up, he had on 64 targets, he had 53 receptions and 400 yards. But I mean, he really shined on the ground last year. I mean, they fed Josh Jacobs. 340 touches, 1,650 yards and 12 touchdowns. He truly was the, best running back, not the best receiving running back, but the best running back, right there with like Nick Chubb. So, I mean, Josh Jacobs was an absolute stud last year. Him and Devontae Adams are going to absolutely run that offense. And, at pick number 7, I feel like we just hit it on the nail on the head with this one, because it is where he should be taken. I do feel like there's guys with more upside than him, coming here into the top 5, even though Josh Jacobs was, the best running back last year. But number 7 on a Raiders offense feels about right. And he feels like a very safe pick because he's going to get those touches.
Yeah, it's safe because he finishes the RB3 last year, and it's not like the Raiders offense was very good with Derek Carr. And so they have Jimmy G coming over, who you definitely know what you're going to get with Jimmy G. So I feel like that is a positive for Josh Jacobs' fantasy outlook. And yeah, he finishes the RB3. He's going as the RB8. That's pretty simple, obvious draft candidate, especially now that he's playing. He reached an agreement and he's with the team. So I have no question marks with Josh Jacobs. He's an absolute beast. He's going to want to prove himself again to get a bigger contract. So I'm really excited on Josh Jacobs. I'm drafting him. We have one guy ahead of him that's going a little bit behind him, but that's just because he's a freak with some high upside.
Yeah, and one thing with Josh Jacobs too, that is a big thing you mentioned. Going into a contract season, they always play better. And so Josh Jacobs, I don't know if he'll return to the Raiders next year, so he's going to really want some good highlight tape to sell him to other teams. And so I think we'll see a very eerily similar year to Josh Jacobs from last year, because I mean, he's going to go out there and he's going to play hard.
Yeah, 1,650 rushing yards last year is pretty crazy. What would you like predict him to get this year? Like 1,500 less?
Oh gosh, I mean, that is a lot of yards.
It's a lot.
But in the offense and the style that they're playing, I don't feel like it's unreasonable. I mean, I want to honestly say like 1,300 yards, but I think his receiving upside goes up a little bit more. So I'm going to say like 1,300 rushing yards, but I think he's going to go up to like 500 receiving yards and maybe like, a handful of scores for receiving too.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. I would say like 1,300 rushing yards. He had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. I'd probably go like 8 or 9. And then I think his receiving touchdowns go from 0 to like 1 or 2 with like 500 receiving yards. So yeah, he's definitely going to have a very productive season. That's probably a top 5 running back season again. So draft Josh Jacobs. He's a
Yeah. What pick in I know he's going in the second round. What pick in the second round is he going?
he is going as the 8th pick in the second round.
Yeah, tremendous value. Tremendous value. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, 4 spots after Derrick Henry.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Get Josh Jacobs on your fantasy team if you can. Especially, I mean, in the second round, if you're going wide receiver first round, and you're lucky enough, if you get a top wide receiver first round, you're lucky enough to get a, running back like Josh Jacobs Faldy in the second. That's tremendous value.
All right, we'll get into our RB6. The NFL Seekers RB6 is going to be Cowboys running back Tony Pollard. He's going as the consensus RB9, the 11th pick in the second round. Me and Josh both have him at 5, and Shane has him at 7. I'm really excited for Tony Pollard. I feel like the RB9 is just way too low for him, considering that he's the complete focal point in the Cowboys backfield, and they're saying that they want to run the ball more. You would think, with Mike McCarthy saying that they want to pound the ball down the team's throats every play and just run the ball a lot this year, you'd think they'd bring Zeke in or someone like that, but they just only have Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn. So it kind of just shows me that Tony Pollard is going to be a productive beast this year, and he's going to be a fantasy beast. He was last year. He finishes a top 10 running back last year, sharing the whole season with Zeke, and now he's got the whole backfield to himself for a whole season. So I feel like the RB9 draft capital just makes no sense, and you can feel comfortable drafting him really anywhere in like mid second round on. I really am excited for him.
Tell me this doesn't feel like eerily similar to like an Austin Ekeler getting rid of Melvin Gordon situation.
Yeah,
Like
and
right at the same age, receiving upside, very good yards per carry. He's 5.2 yards per carry, fantastic. Just feels eerily similar to like an Austin Ekeler situation, but almost in a better run scheme. Like, going to that, I mean, having the Cowboys offensive line, getting rid of Zeke. I mean, it just feels like Tony Pollard, and this is, bold take for me, but could definitely finish as the RB1 this year. I'm very confident that Tony Pollard has the upside to finish as RB1. So I mean, taking a shot on this guy, and he's ADP running back 9, that feels just tremendously low. And if you're going for upside, I mean, this guy is the number 1 upside running back for me, and he's 26 years young. He's just barely hitting his prime, and he's coming into his own. And Deuce Vaughn is Deuce Vaughn. He's 5'5". He's not gonna scare anybody for taking a whole bunch of Tony Pollard's touches. And I think the upside's just this. I mean, it's the upside is just to the sky with this guy. So I mean, get him on your fantasy team. I don't care if you take him at the end of round 1. I feel comfortable enough to say, maybe even at the 1.8 taking Tony Pollard, because I think this guy just has all the upside in the world. And I know for sure he's my dude. I want him. And, I hope I get him. But I mean, for other people, I mean, if you're looking upside, and I know you're a big upside, Dan, this is the dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's why he's moved so far up our rankings above guys like Henry and Jacobs, who are more proven, just because it doesn't really make sense. He finishes the RB8 last year, and that was literally the lowest he'll ever finish, splitting with Zeke literally all season long. So it just feels like it's just something that the fantasy community is just straight up missing on. Like it just feels wrong. Him going as RB9 after finishing as the RB8 last year, splitting a backfield. It doesn't add up, especially if the Cowboys want to run the ball more, and he's a solid runner. And last year, all of his fantasy production was just off reception. So he's a real league winning candidate. He's definitely got RB1 upside. Like he's a special back, and he's gonna be special for fantasy. He's gonna be winning people leagues for sure.
Yeah, I'm preach. Love this dude. Love the upside. Love the talent. Just get him on your teams. Don't even think about it. If you want to win your leagues, you got to be bold, and this is the guy to be bold on.
And Pollard just has that big playability. He's the guy that you're going to be watching every week on Red Zone, and you're just going to see him breaking a long touchdown every single week. He's a week winner as well for fantasy. He had weeks last year with like 34, 37 points, 25 points, 23 points. So he has some real spike boom weeks. So I think Tony Pollard is the running back that people are really missing on this year, kind of like Joe Mixon, but to an even higher upside extent.
Absolutely. Well, should we move into running back 5?
Yep. We'll get into our NFL Seekers RB5. It is Nick Chubb, Nicholas Chubbs for the Browns, and me and Josh both have him at 6. Shane has him at 4. We have him as our consensus RB5, and he's going as the RB5. So I will say I've definitely raised on Nick Chubb the last few days. Just kind of thinking about it more. I'm really high on the Browns. I think the Browns have one of the more well put together rosters in the whole NFL, if not the most complete roster. And I think Deshaun Watson will take an obvious step up, and the Browns have top 3 offensive line in the NFL. So Nick Chubb is just in a beautiful, beautiful spot. He was awesome last year, but I just feel like if the Browns offense can reach their potential this year, they might have the most potential in the whole NFL on offense, but the biggest wild card right now in the NFL at quarterback. So it's really exciting. And I feel like Nick Chubb you could easily say he's the best running back in the NFL right now, just physically, just running back wise. If you had to pick a running back to get you 3 yards on any given play, I think Nick Chubb is that guy right now. He's the most underrated guy. He's not the flashiest, but he's an absolute beast of a running back. And I've moved him up the last few days over some really, really proven running backs just because of how good he is and how exciting I think the Browns offense can be.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Shane has him at number 4. That's that's crazy. That's not crazy, but that is high, and I like it and I respect it. Yeah, me and you both have him at 6. So yeah, I do like the compromise. We have them both at RB5. It feels right. But yeah, like you said, Nick Chubb, when it comes to a football standpoint, is the best running back. I mean, there's no one you want to hand off the ball to more than this guy. I mean, he's got absolute tree trunks of legs. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You see like his squatting videos, he squats like 700 pounds. It's just he's not human. And so trying to tackle those legs, you just don't. So I mean, this guy, he's just a force to be reckoned with. But I think one of the most slept on facts and no one's talking about enough is the fact that Kareem Hunt is gone. And I think Nick Chubb will be, his receiving upside's never been big, but I think you can almost double his target share, especially with a higher upside Browns offense. And we know Deshaun Watson is going to be better. He hadn't played football for seems like 10 years, and then he comes back last year, and obviously it's going to be rocky. But I think this offense is going to be a lot more high powered, and I think they're going to be scoring a lot more. And I mean, he scored 12 times last year on the ground. I honestly think he's got a chance to score more than that. I think he could be a 15+ touchdown guy this next coming season. And you just lock him in for over 1,000 yards. He's never going to run for under 1,000 yards. And so he's one of the more safer picks. And I think in the terms of that, I mean, just the receiving side is going to be interesting this year. And the upside could be huge. I mean, if he starts getting targeted more without Kareem Hunt, I think that's just going to pay dividends to people who draft him. Because I mean, if you had a little bit of receiving onto his stats, he's going to be real lethal and real league winning.
You definitely do forget that the people have regarded Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb the best running back duo in the NFL by far for years. So that is definitely a big change. They don't really have anyone behind them. There's Jerome Ford. They lost Dearness Johnson too. So Jerome Ford behind him literally says it all. So it's really exciting for Nick Chubb. He could literally just be out there all 3 downs. He only had 1 receiving touchdown last year, so that's obviously going to be an upgrade. Even if you're not high on Deshaun Watson, that's definitely going to be an upgrade with Kareem Hunt leaving. So it's really exciting for Nick Chubb, and he finished as the RB6 last year, and that's with Jacoby Brissett and a terrible Deshaun Watson season. So I think this is another pick that's just kind of an obvious one. He's going as an RB5. I think if you can just get him as RB5, it's a safe, perfect pick, and he's gonna get you over 10 points every week. You don't really got to worry about him. He's gonna just be a consistent person to help you win.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I really like this pick, and especially, I mean, what's his ADP right now? Tell me, it's like back end first,
It's
second
the
round.
second pick of the second round, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, I really like that for a guy that finished RB6 last year. That feels very safe, very reasonable. And I just don't feel like there's a low floor. I think we've seen Nick Chubb's floor, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, probably the highest floor of any of these top running backs, actually.
Yeah, one of the safer picks for sure. You know what you're getting out of Nick Chubb, and I think there's only upside to go.
Yeah, speaking of upside, we'll get into our top 4, who are all really high upside, high variance options. And New York Jets or New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley comes in at an RB4. He's being drafted as the RB4 as well. He's going as the 11th pick overall in the first round. Me and Josh are both the same on him again at 4, and then Shane has him at 3. So we're all pretty high on Saquon. He's an absolute beast. I completely feel comfortable taking him in the first round at this point. He's got so much upside now that he's got no question marks with the contract situation, and he's all in on being in New York with Brian Dable, one of the better offensive minds. You know that he's gonna really scheme it up for Saquon. And Saquon is so awesome as a receiver too. I feel like his PPR boost just makes him a first round pick lock if you're in a PPR league and you're picking around 11 or 12. I feel like Saquon is just an obvious pick. I feel like there's a little bit of a drop down and quality of players as well after him. So Saquon is a really good pick this year, and he's definitely going to pay it off if he stays healthy again.
Oh yeah, right here in the top 4 is where we get some big, these guys are the dual threat running backs. These guys are the ones who go out there, they're going to catch 70 plus catches, and run for over 1,000 yards. That's our top 4. And Saquon, right there coming in at number 4. I mean, the receiving upside is huge. I mean, this guy, when you're talking about well-rounded running backs and size and profile, he's probably the one you'd pick over anyone. The size of Saquon Barkley, 6 foot, 230 pounds. He can catch, he can run, he can do everything. And I think coming into his second year with Dayball, I think this offensive system is going to get a lot better. It's going to be a lot smoother, even though they were really good last year. And I think they're just going to go up again this year and feel more comfortable in that scheme. Always the second year in a new system is usually their best year. So I absolutely love Saquon this year. I mean, he had 76 targets last year. And he didn't have much actually receiving yards. He only had 338. But I honestly think this year we're going to get back into rookie Saquon, where, I mean, people forget Saquon's rookie year, he had 1,300 rushing yards, 700 receiving yards, and then 15 total touchdowns. I think that's kind of the area where we're going to see Saquon going into year 2 with Dayball. And he's clearly the best weapon in this New York Giants offense, and they're going to use him like that. So, I mean, he's going to be catching, he's going to be running. I think you can count him for 10 plus touchdowns, 1,500 all-purpose yards. I think he's a very safe pick, and especially, at the back end of the first round, absolutely love Saquon.
Yeah, he finishes the RB5 last year, and there actually was a lot to be desired looking back at it. He, like you said, only had 330 receiving yards, but he had 0 receiving touchdowns. So that's an obvious upgrade candidate. I just have a feeling that he's gonna have a pretty good year through the air, and I feel like he's gonna score some receiving touchdowns this year. So that might even out with his awesome running production. He's literally the only running back in New York. Like they have Breida behind him, and that's it. So they're going to feed Saquon into the ground like they did last year, and he's an absolute beast. I feel like he finishes the RB5, and it's kind of someone similarly to what we've been saying that he that's kind of his floor, and I feel like he's at least going to be a top 5 running back. So going as the RB4 is perfect, and I think where he's going is perfect.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And yet one of the most just talented, good dudes in the NFL. So really rooting for Saquon. And, I feel very comfortable with him being a top 5 running back all day long. So, I think last year was kind of his floor for receiving. And I think he's going to just take a big leap in touchdowns and yards. So I think we're going to see him, enter maybe even possibly the top 3. So, he's got that kind of upside.
Yeah, he's got easily top 3, even top 1 upside. They upgraded the offensive line, and Brian Dable is one of the better play callers, so he's gonna be featuring Saquon a lot because he's awesome in the receiving game and in between the tackles.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll get into our RB3. It's one of the more exciting, polarizing options right now in all of fantasy football. It's rookie running back for the Falcons, Bijan Robinson. He's going as the 8th overall pick as the RB3. We have him as our RB3. Me and Josh both have him at 2, and Shane's weighing him down all the way down at 5. So we should have him as our RB2, but Shane's weighing him down for sure. But me and Josh both have loved this guy since the day he was drafted, and he came into this beautiful situation with Arthur Smith calling plays and this awesome offensive line that specializes in their run blocking. It's going to be a perfect fit. And I don't really know if people are realizing or even factoring in just how good Bijan's going to be. The guy is just different. Everything he does is different. When you watch him just run the ball in the preseason, the way he moves, it's like he does little jump cuts that I've literally never seen ever before in his first ever NFL snap. So just the things that he does are just different. And he's a great running back. He's as smooth as receiver you'll ever see as a running back. Probably the best receiving back that I've ever seen, and no one even mentions that because of how good of a running back he is. So Bijan is just an absolute beast, and I know him going as the RB3 and a top 10 pick in the fantasy football as a rookie is just absurd, but it's really the player that he is. He's probably the best running back in the NFL right now physically. It's insane what he can do, and the system that he's in couldn't be any more perfect.
Oh yeah, I mean Bijan. I was saying blue chip.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's been a great while since we've seen a running back like Bijan. I mean, we're getting the Saquon Barkley comparisons, but I mean, like, since that blue chip of a guy. But I mean, this guy is truly unique and different. And I mean, he's 21 years old. He's in true. I mean, his shape. He doesn't have a lot of miles on him. I mean, you watched this first. I mean, I almost like stutter speaking because there's just so many good things I want to spit out and say about Bijan Robinson. I mean, but like me and you both watched his first preseason snap and we're like, okay, yeah, okay. It's real. The hype is real. It's real. I mean, just like the cuts he made, it was LaDainian Tomlinson-esque. I mean, it reminded me of watching prime LaDainian Tomlinson make a cut, and he's doing that in his first ever carry. I mean, so it's just kind of ridiculous to think about the upside with this guy. And like you and me, both preach, it's upside. You draft in fantasy for upside. And if you want a guy who honestly will probably end up being RB1, it's going to be Bijan Robinson. I mean, the age is there. I mean, the talent is just off the charts, and he's in a system that couldn't be any better. I mean, he's in a system that produced Tyler Algier, to be a 1,000-yard runner. And so you think about putting Bijan into that system. I mean, the sky's the limit. The upside is crazy. And like you said, no one talks about his receiving. His receiving ability. You could line this dude up and, he could be a full-time slot receiver because, I mean, he's that good. This dude runs some of the most crisp routes I've ever seen from a running back. And the talent is just different, and it's on another level. And I mean, frankly, he could very easily be RB1.
Yeah, RB3 just feels too low. And like people like Shane that are low on Bijan for no reason other than the fact that he's a rookie. It's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like I can guarantee you, I'll put so much money on it that he will be the first overall pick in fantasy next year. I feel like he's a lock to be the first overall pick in fantasy for the next like decade. So I don't really see anything that can hold Bijan back. He's got two decent running backs behind him, but their running scheme is so nice, and it's just gonna draw run plays so nicely, and it's gonna fit Bijan perfectly, and he's gonna be an absolute playmaker because that's what he does is make plays, and he's gonna be a perfect luxury for that Falcons offense, and a young Desmond Ridder who's definitely gonna be dumping it off to him a lot too.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I'm scratching my head with Shane's having him at RB5. I mean, that's just ridiculous and downright disrespectful. I mean, there's just I don't really see a universe or a world where Bijan's gonna fail. I mean, for being a rookie, it's kind of crazy to say that, but we know what we're going to get out of Bijan. It's going to be just absolutely tremendous. And like you said, I mean, you can pretty much lock him in for being RB1 next season, and he's going to go first overall next season. There's no doubt about it. Because I mean, everyone's going to see the talent that Bijan is in the NFL, and it's ridiculous. And I love the system that he's going into. It's just so perfect for a running back.
So he's, like I said, he's going as the 8th overall pick right now. I feel like that feels a little low. What is the highest that you would feel comfortable taking him? I think personally for me, I think I would debate between him and Jamar Chase at 3. So like, or honestly, I think I would just have him at 3, actually. Yeah, I think he's just my 3, and then Jamar Chase is 2. I would probably debate on having him at 2. Like I really am that confident.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say for me, I mean, I think it's just too hard to pass up on what Justin Jefferson is right now. But I can talk myself into drafting Bijan Robinson over Austin Ekeler, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey all day long because I know the upside and I kind of know what you're going to get from Bijan. So I'll be honest, I feel very confident saying this that I'd feel comfortable taking Bijan at 2.
Yeah, one of the more higher upside, one of the more fun options you can get in fantasy football, like ever. Like Bijan is going to be a pick that you'll always remember. I feel like he's like going to be that special as a rookie. So we'll we'll,
Absolutely.
we'll get under our RB2, who you just mentioned is Austin Ekeler. He's being drafted as the RB2, as the fourth overall pick in your drafts. I have him as my RB3. Shane has him at 2, and Josh has him as his RB1. So
Yeah.
so we're all a little bit off on this one. We're all in a little bit different spots, and we all have him as a top 3 running back because he's an absolute beast. He's the best receiving back in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see how Kellen Moore uses him because obviously that potential is through the roof. One of the better play callers with an absolute electric weapon out of the backfield. So I'm really excited for Ekeler. The Chargers offense is going to be fireworks. So they're going to be scoring a lot, and that'll be really good for Ekeler on the ground and in the receiving game. Quentin Johnston coming in, I personally believe is going to have an awesome year. So that could affect Ekeler in some type of way, but they didn't really bring in any backup running backs. So I think Ekeler is still, he's been like a top 3 running back like every year, and I don't see that changing.
Yeah, Austin Eckler's the fantasy king, and he kind of knows it himself. I mean, he goes on every year. He has his own podcast, and he's a big guy. Talks about fantasy football and plays it himself. And he's very confident in himself. And every year he puts up. I mean, this dude he was RB1 last year, and then I think the year before he was top 3. So I mean, I mean, for whatever reason, people just don't like. I mean, he always just kind of falls a little bit, later than what he really should be going. I mean, this guy should be a top, I mean, I'd say at least top 4 lock every single year, just because, I mean, go look at touchdowns scored by players, and Austin Eckler is ahead by a mile. He scored 38 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons, which is like 15 more than anyone else. And that doesn't get talked about enough. And then also Austin Eckler, which is the most important thing for fantasy running backs, is the best, running back. I mean, he's so consistent. I mean, last year, the fact that he had 127 targets as a running back and he caught 107 of them. I mean, that's ridiculous. And for, 722 yards and 5 touchdowns, and then, has another 13. I mean, he scored, 18 touchdowns last year and had 127 targets. That's RB1 material. That's what you want on your team. And I think Austin Eckler is honestly the safest running back to take in fantasy football. And he's had 2 straight seasons of playing, a full season. And so he's pretty strong. He's pretty durable. And in a Kellen Moore offense, where it's going to be electric. We've seen these running backs in preseason already with Kellen Moore. The system is so much better. They finally have their best 5 starting offensive linemen they've had in maybe the last 10 years. And so I think the sky's the limit. I think the only thing that might hurt Austin Eckler is just the talent around him, which might, maybe cut into his fantasy production. But every single year he puts up and seems to be the most consistent guy in fantasy football next to Travis Kelce.
Yeah, and the best part is he's one of the more, if not the most, of a touchdown machine in the whole NFL. He just spurs out touchdowns. It's crazy. Like every possession he'll be scoring, and that was with Joe Lombardi. And you've got Kellen Moore coming over, so the sky really is the limit with Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert. They already have a great connection. And yeah, he's the smoothest receiver out of the backfield. He's the most reliable, the best hands as a running back. So he's an awesome all-around running back. Like 900 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns obviously is awesome for how much we've talked about him as a receiver. So yeah, Eckler's, you can't go wrong with that pick. And like you said, it kind of feels like he's going as a 4th overall pick, but I definitely see him falling to closer to like the 6th or the 7th pick in most of my drafts, just because of his age.
Yeah, and I know people are going to definitely shoot for upside over Austin Eckler, but if you're looking just for consistency and the safest floor, I mean, every week, so I've had Austin Eckler the last 2 years in fantasy football, and every single week you don't worry. He's going to put up 18 to 30 points. It's just, you just don't even worry about it. So you set and forget Austin Eckler in your lineup, and you're never really going to be disappointed. I almost, do you know what, I know usually Shane has these stats up, but like his actual like running back consistency ranking and like points, like I guarantee he finished in like the top, probably, I would even say 10 running backs every single week last season.
Yeah, I just know he finishes the RB1 off the top of my head, but yeah, he's just an absolute beast. All the production in the world. And he is probably the most consistent player in fantasy football right now.
Yeah, and maybe I'm spitting a lot about Austin Ekeler, very passionate about him, big Chargers fan. And, if you want safe consistency and you want to just be happy with your pick in the first round, get Austin Ekeler.
All right. We'll get into someone who's going very close to Eckler. He's going one spot higher as the third overall pick. He's going as the RB1. He is our RB1. The 49ers' new running back, Christian McCaffrey. Me and Shane both have him at 1, and Josh has him down at 3, behind both Bijan and Eckler. So I'm really excited for McCaffrey this year. It was so exciting seeing what Shanahan could do with him and what he can do in the offense. He's the real focal point of that offense. Him coming over kind of moved Debo and Ayuk and Kittle all down in production, but he is an absolute beast and just a perfect fit for the offense. And we saw it with the Triple Crown in his first real full week with the team. The sky really is the limit. He can win any given week. He's kind of got the highest upside of any given player on any given week because of how versatile he is, how electric he can be on the ground and in the receiving game. He's no slouch as well. I'd say he's right behind Eckler as the second best receiving running back. So he's an absolute beast. And if he stays healthy, he's kind of been the first overall pick in fantasy for the last few years for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feels a little disrespectful me having Christian McCaffrey at 3, but it's just because there's so many good running backs. And, Christian McCaffrey, talent-wise, is probably the most talented running back we've seen in a long time. I mean, when it comes to versatility and doing everything good, and I mean everything great, as a matter of fact. I mean, this dude can throw the ball. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball. I mean, he's a special teamer. I mean, there's nothing Christian McCaffrey can't do. The only thing why I have him at 3 is just because I feel safer about Bijan and Austin Eckler getting through a full 17-game season than I do Christian McCaffrey. And it's nothing to knock on Christian McCaffrey's talent because he is the most talented running back in the NFL. But I do think Bijan will overtake him, and I think Bijan's a safer pick, and I do think Eckler's a safer pick, and I think Eckler will score more touchdowns than Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey's clearly the better running back, but I think Austin Eckler is the better fantasy running back and has a safer floor than McCaffrey does. And I do think Elijah Mitchell might cut into a little bit of Christian McCaffrey's workload because I think Elijah Mitchell's a really good running back. And I think Kyle Shanahan's the creator of the running back by committee, but I honestly think that actually plays a benefit to McCaffrey because he should stay healthy. So absolute stud. I mean, one of the best receiving running backs of our generation, one of the best fantasy players of our generation, fantasy picks of our generation. Absolutely love Christian McCaffrey. Just got to explain myself why I'm at number 3 so I don't get a lot of hate.
Yeah, the injuries have always been the one thing kind of scaring you from McCaffrey and shying people away. I like you said, though, I feel like Eli Mitchell and just the rest of the weapons in general on this offense will help take the load off of him and will help keep him stay healthy. So I am somewhat confident that he will stay healthy like he did last year. I'm not too worried about it, but like obviously the stats and the past isn't really on his side. It's happened a lot before, so it's scary for sure. It's always scary drafting McCaffrey, but he's always the highest upside option in fantasy, really, because he's that guy on any given week. He can get a 60-point game because he can score 3 receiving and rushing touchdowns. He's kind of that one guy, him and Eckler. So yeah, he's and this is the lowest you'll ever get him too. He's going as a 3rd overall pick. Usually he's going as the 1st overall pick, but with Jettas and Chase kind of moving up boards this year, he's not bad value.
No, not at all. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is him. I mean, this guy stays on the field for a full 17 games. I mean, you're going to get just ridiculous production out of him. And it's just going to be so exciting to see him in a full offseason with Kyle Shanahan and see what they can drum up and, do with Christian McCaffrey. I truly think the sky's the limit. And I think Christian McCaffrey's just really hitting his prime right now.
And one last thing, speaking of the sky's the limit, he had 108 targets last year in the receiving game and on top of 244 rush attempts. So that's like 350 total touches. I think that'll go up even with their talent on their offense. So he's going to be really fun, man. If he stays healthy, he's going to very much pay that 3rd overall pick. And he's probably going to win some leagues too if he can stay healthy. That's the player he is.
Absolutely. I absolutely love running backs. These top 10 guys are just ridiculous, man. And, you're going to get some really good value with the receivers moving up draft boards this year. So just remember that going into your fantasy draft day. I mean, running back value is going to be there with this hype on receivers.
Yeah, all of these running backs are really close and really good. It's hard to separate them. So hopefully we kind of helped you decipher what running backs you want in these certain tiers. In these episodes, we posted our running back 20 to 11 rankings last episode. We have our receiver rankings out already. So definitely check out the NFL Seekers podcast and make sure to leave a like if you liked it and subscribe. But yeah, that was fun, Josh.
Absolutely. I loved it. Yeah. Stay subscribed and tune in on all platforms. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, all the Spotify, YouTube. So subscribe and, give us some feedback. Let us know what's going on.
All right. NFL Seekers podcast. We've got one more episode of our fantasy football rankings, quarterback next week. So stay tuned.
Yes,
Peace.
sir. Peace.